it's a large district geographically, same number of people in every one of our Senate districts. So it has been an honor, actually, and it's really been, I have been very grateful for all the friendships that I've developed across the county. And as soon as this meeting gets over, I get to go on we have a weekly call with Yamhill County. So I go over and talk to my Yamhill friends and have a conversation about the things that are going on. I had never anticipated that the year I would leave would be as busy as it has been. I'm probably on Zoom meetings 5 to 6 hours a day because I'm on a whole lot of different kinds of committees, from rural broadband to the state fair to other programs that I continue to be engaged with. We did one on the Shake Alert program. I'm on that group working on getting Shake Alert. You could be the first to know that we're hopefully going live on Shake Alert, which is a national program to make sure people can be connected if there's a large earthquake. California went online about a year ago. We will be going online March 11th. So it's been an interesting ride. We have had more e-board meetings, and I'm on the e-board than probably any time in the recent history. We anticipate having a third special session coming up after the election to do a few other things that were going on. But the pandemic, the forest fires, the flooding over in Eastern Oregon, all of those have required more direct work at the legislature than we have done in many, many years. And this virtual legislature has been very difficult. We don't get the chance to meet with our constituents and the people at the Capitol. We try to do things by Zoom, but it's clearly not the way government was designed to work. We hope that by taking the time that we have to get things right in the e-board, we're getting resources to the right places, hopefully making a difference in people's lives. This last e-board was a little contentious about some money to be spent from a program that the counties tried to develop, which has to do with buying old hotels, fixing them up for housing for the homeless population and also for workforce housing. We did pass $30 million for those affected by the fires. So the 7 counties that were directly affected by fires can actually start a program with the the Oregon Community Foundation to start using some of that money to purchase hotels, fix them up, and then have long-term housing for people in their communities. So in our area, that means Lane County would qualify and Lincoln County in my district. Both of those had major fire disruptions. So it's been an interesting time. And the opportunity to meet with people across the state, I'm looking forward to my retirement. I got a couple things that I felt were really important done in my 16 years in the legislature, 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate, that were really important to me, including the Student Success Act. And hopefully those resources will help our schools get back and get kids back in schools, because as everybody knows, kids do much better when they are in contact with other kids. And this isolation has not been good for people across the state. We have put extra money and resources into making sure that we have resources for mental health for a lot of our people, but alcoholism and other things are a problem that results in families having problems. And I know that Rotary has spent a lot of time helping out in many, many different ways to help families keep together and also protect children. So I appreciate all that Rotary has done. But it is an interesting thing. We have a big election coming up, and we got a couple, one member from our community and Melissa Cribbins, and then my opponent that has been running for many years, Nick Anderson from up north. So it'll be an interesting race. And then Cal and another person, Cal Makamoto for Caddy McEwen, who is also leaving, and Boomer Wright from up in the Florence area. So it'll be interesting election times. I have been pleased that for most of Senate District 5 time, there has been a member who is from our area, which makes it easier sometimes to keep that contact going when you have such a large district. With that, I guess if there's any questions, I would really love to answer questions to anybody who would have them, and encourage people to keep engaged and keep involved. Rotary is a hands-on organization, and I have appreciated that in lots and lots of different ways. But so is government. And the more people get involved, the better it is. One of the big assets that you have as a senator is that you get to help, because the governor wants to appoint people. And we are a state that is governed in large part by commissions and organizations that have regular citizens as their members. And most of those appointments by the governor have to be approved by the Senate. And so you get to know the myriad of amazing Oregonians that are willing to give up their time freely to be on all of the commissions that are helping run agencies, and all of the other programs that are out there that need that direct relationship with citizens. So I encourage anybody in Rotary who wants to get engaged to think about what are some of those commissions and places that people would like to be. And we've been fairly successful in having local people on state parks, on DSL, on Division of State Lands, on all of these different agencies. So that's a really important thing. The other part that I would tell you is that legislation and legislating is all about relationships. And having been a principal for a long time and having had the opportunity to help foster the engagement of students at Marshfield High School to get engaged, it's always been heartening to know that whether it's Senator Wyden's office, one of my old students, or whether it's DeFazio's office, one of my old students, or whether it's Bonamici's office or Schrader, having people who know you and have worked with you for a long time makes it easier to connect to those people and have a conversation. As I'm going out, the other thing that I will mention, and many of you may be on our email list, we've been doing a fireside chat, an opportunity for me to interview the people who make a difference in our state, from business people to elected officials, about what's going on with the pandemic, with the fires, all of the other issues that have been going on. And so every Tuesday night, so tonight, from 5 to 6 o'clock, we do a little deal out of a public radio station in Florence, and then we go Facebook Live. We've been getting about 5,000 people a week that watch that, either on live or a little later because it's posted on Facebook. Tonight it's Congressman DeFazio, and talking about the extra money he just helped us receive for our finishing up our railroad, or continuing to work on our rail program. We had to fight to get 5 million matching, and we were able to do that with the state money. So it's a fun opportunity to hear from different people who are doing things. Betsy Johnson, another senator, will be on today also to talk about the new OSHA rules, and a number of business people that are having a hard time understanding how they're going to comply with those OSHA rules and keep a business going. So that's the kind of thing we're doing. And the other one, I guess I would say, is that it's been exciting for me to have the opportunity to work with Patty McEwen over these last 8 years as she is getting ready to retire. The two of us were actually two of the people who have been selected as Statesman of the Year by OBI. She got it this year. I had it a few years back. So it's, I think we have done a good job of representing the community, and it only happens because as I look at the screen and see a whole lot of the people who I know, people are willing to reach out and share their ideas with me. Whether we agree or not is not the issue. Getting your voice heard is the issue, and I really appreciate that connection to our community over the number of years. So thank you very much, and thanks for having me come and spend a little bit of time with Rotary. It's always been exciting. I've had the opportunity to do this the last number of years. So again, one of these days, maybe I'll talk to Tim. Now that I'll have some free time, maybe I can get engaged and get involved with an organization which has been important to me throughout my career. So thank you. And any questions, Tim?
Thank you, Arnie. Yeah, we do have some questions. Steve, I see your hand up. Go ahead and we'll make our way around. We've got a few hands coming up. So go ahead, Steve.
Not a question, just a comment. First of all, as you notice that my good friend Tom ridiculed my excellent grammar, but thank you, Arnie, for making sure I knew how to do math.
I agree. I appreciate that, Steve. I was going to point that out too. It was great having you as a student some of the days, and it was a challenge other days. But it was great that you got the geometry and the math you needed to continue to be a successful business person in our community. So thank you.
I could not have done it without the extra time you took with me after class, after school, to make sure I understood it. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Arnie, let me ask you this. I always find it fascinating, and we asked Caddy the same thing, but I always find it fascinating when somebody gets into public service for legislature, because you know, it's such a jump from whatever they were doing usually, and from a role as an educator and a principal, and then making the jump to state legislature. What prompted you to do that, and how was it when, you know, was it what you thought it would be when you made that jump?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Actually, when I was in high school, you know, the Kennedy era, there was this engagement with young people. I was very active in high school. I had a really good friend who was an arch conservative, so we'd have these great conversations about, he was a Goldwater person, and me, and we'd have these big debates back then. And I always thought that at some point I would like to get engaged more in government. And then when I became an educator, it was clear to me that in order to do your job, you have to work with every person that walks in the room. And so wearing a particular partisanship or whatever on your sleeve is not the most appropriate. So I just decided that from my perspective, I would not be political when I was around school. And it worked both at the high school level as a teacher and then as a principal. But I got engaged in government early. So Doc McLean, I don't know how many people remember Doc McLean, but he was a longtime teacher and educator here in the area. He was one of the founders of the Oregon YMCA Youth in Government. And Youth in Government gives kids an opportunity to come to the legislature and pretend to be senators and House members and run for office, be a governor or whatever, or speaker. And he engaged with me to take that program over. And so for most of the years that I was at the high school, I was one of the main people, including when I was principal, for Youth in Government. And we would take a group of kids every year up to Salem, and they turn over the Capitol to those kids. And so Brian Clem was one of my students. He's now a legislator with me. A number of other people have gone on to do political things, but we're involved in the youth and government thing because government has always been important. When you're in education, you recognize that's where your funding is coming from. That's where the rules and the laws that set up what you do come from. So understanding how government works is really, really important. And even as a math teacher, I really felt that was a really important thing. So as I was getting ready to retire, then Representative Verger was getting ready to move into the Senate position. And I decided, well, no time but now. And as I have told people over and over again, there's this little story that Bill Lilly used to always tell kids about the man in the mirror, or the person in the mirror, however you want to say that now more appropriately. And that the fact is that, you know, that's the person you have to be responsible for. And when you look at the person in the mirror, and that person is saying, oh, this is a problem, we aren't getting enough money for education, all these other problems, then the only person you really have any control over doing anything about it is that person staring back at you. And so I made a decision at that point that I wanted to run for the legislature and try to figure out what I could do to help stable funding for education, a whole bunch of other kinds of issues that had been coming up that I wanted to grumble about, but I hadn't necessarily said I was going to do anything about. And I think when I got to the legislature, I found out that it was a lot of what I'd expected because I've been working with these kids and looking at government and met a lot of lobbyists and other people who work with the YMCA program. So I had a general understanding. I guess I didn't quite realize how important relationships are in that process and how having an open personality and willingness to talk to just about anybody who walked in because you don't know what good idea they might have was really, really important to me and to making it function. I got in battles in the very beginning of my first year over the airport funding and some other education stuff. And a lot of different things have happened. But in each case, what I have found is that when you get into something, go into it 100%, whether it's going to be a principal or whether it's going to be a legislature, get engaged, figure it out. You know, some people early on told me, go talk to the clerk. They know all the rules. You can't win the games and you can't do the battles in the legislature if you don't know the rules. So I spent a lot of time sitting in the clerk's office and asking about what things could happen and how it works. And it was really interesting to learn the history and understand how people move things in our legislature, and made interesting relationships with people, both on the Republican and Democratic side, to move agendas forward and get things done. And then I had the opportunity when it stepped up to be speaker, which was really a unique experience. First time in the history of our state that we had a 30-30 tie in the legislature. Got to know Bruce Hanna really well as we worked together to do things, and again, developed a really strong relationship with the person on the other side of the aisle. So take advantage of the things that come up, fully invest in whatever it is you're going to invest in, and listen to other people, because they will help you. The one thing that a lot of people know in business is that even your rivals, if you really want to hear from them and you really talk to them and ask them, they're going to help you, because everybody knows that you lift everybody up, it raises all the ships, the ocean. So it is that willingness to put yourself out on the line and to go there. So I was not as surprised as some people about the building and the how the place worked. I was in the minority that first year, and I still got quite a bit done because of those skills that people had taught me. And I've always said being the principal of the house was kind of fun, which is what they called me a lot of times when I was there. And then I just made sure that everybody understood that all these different connections that Coos Bay has. So the speaker then, both of them, Dave Hunt and Merkley, both started coining the phrase the Coos Bay Mafia, because every time they turned around, there was another Coos Bay person that was involved in something or other. So I made sure that they believed that in all cases, so they came and checked. So we do have a wide girth of kids and people who are from our community that are fanned out across the state in lots of interesting deals. The head of the Farm Bureau is one of our old students. There's a whole bunch of other organizations that have Marshfield people embedded in them, and that's been a positive thing to make sure people in Portland and others understand. So thanks for the question.
You're welcome. Thank you. Excellent. A very interesting answer. I have another question. I don't want to take up all the time, though. Does anybody else have a question? Well, one that kind of prompted my, Bill Greil noted in the chat that you might have started your government service as a member of the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Bill was there around those times. We had some battles. That was kind of fun, actually, with the Coos Bay North Bend Water. Mayor Verger at the time contacted me and asked if I would like to be on the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board. And I thought, oh, that'd be great. And then the first meeting they send me to is out at Lakeside, because they think we're going to steal their water. I mean, that was as contentious a meeting as I have been in my whole life, is sitting there listening to all these people thinking we're stealing their water. And I kept thinking to myself, we aren't taking it till it's out of the lake and down the river. I mean, it's not even in the city. Why are they talking about their water? I mean, we weren't sucking it out of the lake, but it was very contentious. It was, we were looking at trying to build some more infrastructure out on the dunes, and we needed water for that, whether it was in that particular time a steel mill or whatever. All of those kinds of things give you insight into how to go about doing things. It was really interesting. The first bill I got engaged in when I got the legislature had to do with the water board, because Lakeside sued the water board with regard to their water right for that particular thing. And they won in court because, and a couple of other environmental groups got engaged in this deal. And they said the rule was you only had 5 years to develop your water right. And it had been like 10 years. And I was saying, well, and our argument to the court was, we were in court for 10 years. How could we couldn't do it because we were in litigation. You wouldn't let us do it. Oh, there's no excuses. That's it. You got 5 years. It's lost. So first bill I got involved with was to change that and give water rights to communities and municipalities of 20 years so they can actually get something done, because you have to have water in your community. You got to develop it over time. So that was really helpful. And it came back to bite me again about, and I learned another lesson because I was a freshman that year. About 3 years ago, there was this whole issue with respect to Cottage Grove about the water right was fine, but you have to have water for fish, and that they take precedence actually at different times. And so developing your water right has to take that into consideration. I go back to my notes because it was said it was because of the bill that I passed that this was in there. And I couldn't remember anything about it. And I read the bill, didn't say anything about fish. And so I learned that when the courts look at things, they go back and look at who it was that spoke about the bill and developed the bill. And the senator, not the House member, because my comments didn't have anything to do with fish, but in the Senate side, the carrier was a guy by the name of Ringo. And he made this big argument about why this bill was going and how on and on about fish and protection of fish and water. And when the courts heard the case, they went back to his comments on the Senate floor as one of the providers of the bill to come up with the decision they made. So again, I learned what you say on the floor of the Senate and the House really makes a difference from time to time when the courts are not sure how to move forward. So it was one of those things that the Water Board gave me gifts all the way through, continued to almost my last year in the Senate. And clearly it is one of the biggest issues right now. Water, fresh, safe water in Oregon is going to be the biggest thing in the future because our snowpack is not lasting in the Cascades. We better figure it out. So it was a great experience, and having a city manager like Grylder harass me the whole time I was there was really helpful.
Hey, Tim.
Sure.
Tim, I want to give a shout out to Arnie. You know, the relationship between Eugene and Springfield is much like the relationship between Coos Bay and North Bend. And when I went to work for the city of Springfield, one of the things I discovered was that Springfield wanted to grow and Eugene didn't, but the two cities were yoked together in what was called the Metro Plan. And so because there was no way to break that relationship short of a legislative fix, and the legislature is very reluctant to get involved in single jurisdiction issues. But a bill was drafted and presented through Arnie's committee. And thanks largely to Arnie, Eugene and Springfield now have the ability to be the captains of their own destiny, largely when it comes to deciding how they want to handle growth issues. And I was always really grateful to you, Arnie, for that. So thank you again very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was it's always interesting. Land use is one of the most interesting parts of Oregon. We are very unique. So if you've looked at all the other 50 states, then forget about it because ours is totally different.
Yeah.
I can say, having represented the Lakeside Rural Fire Protection for 17 years, that there is definitely something in the water.
I think you might be onto something, Dave. Having covered some lakeside issues and their some of their meetings that have been quite interesting, and some of their political forums that were quite interesting. Arnie, what would you say? I guess how would you try to reach people who are thinking about or that should maybe, how would you encourage them to think about making the switch to public service in a climate that has gotten a bit contentious, without necessarily pointing fingers or anything like that? But what would be your sell point to people to get involved? I mean, I know you've touched on some things, but what would be the sell point for people to?
My biggest thing is that if you are a person who's starting to get upset and want to complain about things, then that's the time when you really need to take action and recognize that our government is really run by us, the people. And even though there's contentious stuff at the legislature, they walked out a couple times, my Republican colleagues. I have a lot of really good friends that are Republicans, and we developed relationships through difficult times and good times. And I guess you can have an influence at any level in our government. An individual person can make a difference. The ability to sit down and talk with each other, to listen to the other members, to try to figure out where is that place where we can actually agree on something and move forward. that really does happen, and it happens at the local level as much, maybe more so than it does at all the other levels. So look around. If there's something that you're really interested in, you really care about, there's probably a commission, a group, organization, or some way to get engaged in that. Our cities have budget processes. They're different than they used to be, but they still have budget committees, and they need people to be on those. Parks always need people, and it's really interesting to see how state parks have done things. Cal Makamoto was on the state parks, and we helped get him there. George Tinker, who was a teacher at the high school, wanted to be on the Marine Board. So one of my first deals was helping him get on the Marine Board, where he served for 8 years and did a lot of stuff. He still does safety stuff out at Charleston with boats, and has a school to teach people how to do sailboats out at 10 miles. So I mean, find that thing where you have a passion and you want to add some value to it and get engaged in it. I think everybody should. Rotary is a good example. It's not a government agency, but it does a lot of the same kinds of things that government does. And getting engaged, getting in leadership, help make choices makes a difference for your local community. So again, I would say find that place where you think you could make a difference, and go for it. I never imagined, if there was one thing about elections that are harder to understand than anything else, I didn't know I was going to need a lot of money to run a campaign for the House. And when I got my first campaign, it was only like a couple $100,000, which is a lot of money. I don't have that around all the time. But you go out and you talk to people and you explain what you're doing and why you're passionate about something, and money comes in to you, whether it's from lobbyists or whether it's from individuals. Lots of individuals send $25 checks and $50 checks, which really tugs at your heartstrings. I have a woman that sends me every year through her account $15. It's like clockwork. It comes, my $15. I had to send it back to her a couple times because she sent it when we were in session, which I cannot collect the money when I'm in session. But she understood, kept that check, and sent it back afterwards. So I mean, it's interesting, the relationships that you send up. My last elections, over $1 million had to be raised. That's an enormous amount of money to raise in 4 or 5 months, but it works. And the other side gets $1 million, and hopefully we spend as much as we can in our local communities, on our radio stations and our TV stations and others. And some of that money gets recycled into our economy. That's a good thing. I would have loved to have had the money that was raised in my campaigns as a high school principal for my school, but that you got to keep in perspective the kind of decisions and stuff you're doing and why people spend money. This just happens to be one of those places in the state of Oregon, and there's only about 5 or 6 of them, where the breakout between Democrat, Republican, Independent is pretty even. And so it costs money. This is the places everybody fights over, regardless of whether they like you or not. They're going to fight over it because this is the kind of district we live in.
Very good. Any other question before we wind down? I think we're kind of taking it up just near the hour, and I don't want to run over the hour. And I know Arnie's got another appointment coming up here with his folks in Yamhill.
Yep.
So we want to be wary of his time. So, Mr. Roblan, thank you very much for coming to spend a little time with us here today.
It's great to be here to see all these people that I know. They are great people here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and let's give a Rotary send-off to Arnie, and enjoy your final ride through on session through Zoom as much as you can on a Zoom session.
Yep, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
And you're more than welcome to stick out, but if you have to get going, we understand.
I got a couple more minutes. I'll wait for a second, but thanks.
Thank you very much. And anyone else have any business for the good of the order as we wind down here? Steve, did you have anything? I know you got kind of cut out in the middle. Anybody else here? Otherwise, what we've got coming up, we're going back to a regular meeting next week, and I've got Ariane set to fill in for me in a couple weeks. Right, Ariane? Just a thumbs up from Ariane. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and adjourn us about 5 minutes early. I appreciate everybody coming in. It was a very good meeting. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to get a recording out to Bill, if that's okay, so that we can share this on our Facebook page with folks and give a chance to spread the word around on our social media. So I will
And you're a third of the way through, Tim.
Thank you for that inspiration.